Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story is one of the most emotional and soul-stirring stories you will ever hear. It's a story of love, betrayal, and hope. Before we dive in, please take a second to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and don't forget to comment. Thank you so much for doing so. I don't take your support for granted. It means a whole lot to me. I'm forever grateful. And to our story, listen carefully and attentively. The rain was falling hard that Friday night. The kind of rain that seemed to wash away joy itself, drumming heavily against rooftops, splashing into gutters, and turning sidewalks into rivers of mud. Cars hissed as they rolled through the downpour. Headlights blurred against sheets of water. Inside his SUV, Marcus Carter gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual. He wasn't supposed to be home this early. Work had kept him traveling for weeks. Meetings, deadlines, back-to-back presentations. He had left his 3 little girls with the one woman he believed he could trust. Danielle, the woman he had let into his home, his heart, and into his daughters' lives. But Marcus felt something gnawing at him that night. Something he couldn't explain. Maybe it was father's instinct, or maybe it was the fact that his girls' laughter hadn't echoed in his ears for weeks. He needed to see them: Amira, just 8 years old and already a bookworm; Kayla, the bubbly 6-year-old who could make anyone smile; and little Maya, only 4, still clumsy with her words but sweeter than sugar. Marcus parked the SUV on the street instead of pulling into the driveway. He wanted to surprise them. He imagined the squeals of joy when they saw him walk in unannounced. He pictured Amira dropping her book and running into his arms, Kayla jumping up and down with excitement, and Maya tugging at his jacket, demanding the candy he always brought back from business trips. He stepped out of the car, his polished shoes splashing into a puddle. The rain soaked his coat almost instantly, but Marcus didn't care. He hurried toward the house, the porch light dim in the stormy night. That's when he froze. At first he thought the sound was just the rain. But then it grew louder. Crying. High-pitched, heartbreaking sobs that cut through the storm like glass. Marcus's heart nearly stopped. He turned his head, and there, at the corner of the porch, huddled together in the rain like abandoned kittens, were his 3 little girls. Amira was holding Maya close, her tiny body trembling. Kayla's dress clung to her skin, drenched completely, her teeth chattering as she cried into her sister's shoulder. Their small faces glistened with tears and raindrops, hair plastered to their foreheads. For a moment, Marcus thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. This couldn't be real. His daughters, his babies, sitting outside alone in the cold storm. Amira! Marcus's voice broke as he sprinted toward them. Kayla! Maya! The girls looked up, shock flashing across their wet faces. Then in an instant Amira screamed, "Daddy!" They rushed into his arms, their little bodies trembling against him as he knelt in the mud, gathering them all into his chest. "Daddy, she put us out." Amira sobbed, her small voice shaking. Marcus's blood ran cold. Who put you out?" "Danielle," Kayla hiccuped, her lips quivering. "She said she didn't want us no more. She said we cried too much. She said we not hers. She locked the door." Maya whimpered into his shoulder, unable to form words, just clinging tightly to her father as if she feared he'd disappear too. Marcus's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. The rain pounded against his back, but all he could feel was the fire rising inside his chest. Danielle, the woman he had trusted with his daughters, the woman he thought loved them, had thrown them out into a storm, like trash, like they meant nothing. He pulled his coat off and wrapped it around the shivering girls, tucking them inside. "It's okay, babies. Daddy's here now. Nobody's ever gonna hurt you again, you hear me? I promise." But even as he whispered those words, his eyes shot to the front door of the house. The lights were on. Shadows moved inside. Danielle was there, warm, dry, comfortable, while his daughters had been left outside to drown in rain and heartbreak. The rage in Marcus's chest threatened to explode, but he forced himself to stay calm, for the girls. He kissed their wet foreheads, holding them tightly. "Daddy, we were so scared," Amira whispered, her voice shaking. She said you wasn't coming back. Marcus closed his eyes, his heart breaking into pieces. His babies had thought he abandoned them. That alone was enough to crush him. No, 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 he said quickly, wiping their tears. Don't you ever believe that. Daddy will always come back. Always. Lightning cracked across the sky, followed by a boom of thunder. Marcus knew they couldn't stay out here. But the thought of stepping into that house and seeing Danielle after what she had done. He stood, cradling Maya in one arm and guiding Amira and Kayla with the other. As they reached the porch, Marcus pressed his lips into a thin line, the storm in his chest louder than the thunder above. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war. And Danielle had no idea what was coming. Marcus stood on the porch, his daughters clinging to him like lifelines. The rain dripped from their hair and pooled at their feet, but inside the house, through the living room window, he could see Danielle, lounging on the couch as if nothing in the world was wrong. The contrast made his blood boil. How dare she? How dare she put his children outside in the storm while she stayed warm and dry? Daddy, are we going inside? Kayla asked in a shaky voice, clutching his leg. Her little body trembled under his coat. Marcus swallowed hard, torn between wanting to storm through that door and not wanting his girls to see the rage he was feeling. He crouched down so his eyes met theirs. No, baby. Not yet, he whispered. I don't want you to see me angry. But Daddy's gonna take care of this. Right now you need to be warm. He guided them back toward the SUV, opened the back seat, and gently helped them inside. He cranked up the heat, wrapping them in the spare blankets he kept for emergencies. The relief on their faces when the warm air hit their skin nearly broke him. Maya, half asleep in his arms, whispered, Daddy, don't leave us again. Marcus kissed her forehead. Never again, baby girl. Never. As the girls slowly began to settle, Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He wasn't the type of man to let emotions control him, but tonight was different. Tonight, Danielle had crossed a line no one could ever come back from. He stepped out of the SUV, the rain slamming against him again as he strode back to the porch. With one sharp movement, he shoved the door open. The creak echoed through the house. Danielle sat up from the couch, startled, a glass of wine still in her hand. Marcus! She exclaimed, her face twisting in shock. You weren't supposed to be home. Marcus's eyes burned into her. Clearly. Danielle blinked, trying to recover her composure. She smoothed her dress and forced a laugh. You could have called, you know. I would've. Where? Daughters. The words came out low, steady, and dangerous. Danielle faltered, her wine glass trembling in her hand. What do you mean? There. Don't you dare lie to me, Marcus cut her off, his voice rising like thunder. You left them outside. In the storm. My children. Sitting in the rain like they don't matter. For a moment, Danielle's mask slipped. Her face hardened, lips curling. Marcus, don't start. They were screaming, crying, driving me insane. I told them to hush, but they wouldn't. I needed peace. You're always gone, leaving me here with 3 kids that aren't even mine. You think that's fair? Marcus felt something in him snap. Fair. Fair. You think it's fair to throw little girls out into a storm like garbage? His voice shook the walls. You think it's fair to traumatize children because you can't handle responsibility? They're not my responsibility. Danielle shouted back, slamming the glass on the table. I didn't sign up for this. You told me you wanted a partner, not a babysitter. You expect me to be their mother when I never wanted kids. The words hung heavy in the air, cruel and sharp. Marcus stared at her, his jaw clenching. He thought about Amira's little hands holding Maya tight, Kayla's sobs echoing in his ears, their fear when they thought he wasn't coming back. I brought you into this house because I thought you loved us, he said quietly, almost to himself. I thought you cared about them. About me. But you only cared about yourself. Danielle crossed her arms, rolling her eyes. Oh please. You're overreacting. They're fine. A little rain won't kill them. Marcus's chest rose and fell, fury radiating from him. He wanted to yell to tear the room apart, but instead he leaned forward, his voice low and calm, the kind of calm that carried more danger than shouting ever could. Pack your things, Danielle. You're done here. Her eyes widened. What? You heard me. Get out. Tonight. You're throwing me out. After everything I've done for you. For this house. Marcus's laugh was bitter. For me. For the house. You left my children crying in the rain. That's all I need to know. Danielle's face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, Marcus. You'll regret it when you're alone with 3 screaming kids and nobody to help you. Good luck finding another woman who'll put up with that. Marcus didn't flinch. He simply pointed to the door. Out! Danielle cursed under her breath, storming off toward the bedroom. Marcus didn't move, didn't blink. He just listened to the sound of drawers slamming, suitcases dragging, heels clicking against the floor. Minutes later she stormed past him, suitcase in hand, glaring at him one last time. You're pathetic, she spat. You and those kids are dead weight. Don't call me when you realize it. The door slammed behind her, leaving Marcus standing alone in the silence of the storm. For the first time in years, he felt strangely lighter. Broken, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But lighter, because the poison in his home was gone. He walked back to the SUV, opening the door to see his girls peeking up at him with wide, anxious eyes. Is she gone? Amira asked softly. Marcus nodded. She's gone. And she's never coming back. Kayla sniffled. For real? For real, Marcus said, pulling them into his arms. It's just us now. And that's all we need. As the storm began to ease, Marcus sat there in the SUV, holding his daughters close, vowing silently that he would never again let anyone hurt them. Whatever it took, he'd protect them. Always. What he didn't know was that this was just the beginning. The storm outside had passed, but the storm within their lives was only starting to rise. The rain had stopped by morning, but the storm inside Marcus's house lingered. The air was thick with the smell of damp clothes, the sound of sniffles, and the heavy silence that only heartbreak could bring. Marcus had barely slept. He'd sat in the recliner all night. His daughters curled up on the couch, wrapped in blankets. Every time one of them stirred or whimpered, he was there, tucking the blanket tighter, stroking their hair, whispering reassurances he wasn't sure he fully believed himself. He was exhausted, but looking at their small, tired faces reminded him that his fatigue was irrelevant. They needed him more than ever. At sunrise, Amira was the first to wake. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, her curls sticking out in every direction. "Daddy," she whispered. "I'm here, sweetheart," Marcus replied, instantly alert. She shuffled over, climbing into his lap. Her little body sank against his chest and she whispered, "Don't go back to work today." Marcus's throat tightened. He had always prided himself on being a provider, working long hours at the construction firm, managing projects that kept food on the table and clothes on their backs. But Amira's words reminded him of the cost. "I'm not going anywhere," he said firmly. "Not today. Not tomorrow. I'll figure it out. Right now, you 3 are what matters." Kayla woke next, groggy but smiling faintly when she saw her father and sister together. She crawled over too, settling on his knee. Soon Maya, the youngest, stirred and toddled across the floor, dragging her blanket. Marcus opened his arms wide and suddenly, all 3 of his daughters were in his embrace, a huddle of warmth, tears and love. It was messy. It was raw. But it was family. By mid-morning, Marcus decided he needed to establish some normalcy. He cooked pancakes, burning the first batch because Maya kept tugging on his pant leg asking for extra syrup. The kitchen was filled with laughter, the kind that only children could bring even in the midst of pain. Yet, beneath the laughter, Marcus noticed the shadows. Amira jumped every time she heard the front door creak, as if afraid Danielle would return. Kayla refused to sit by the window, saying she didn't like the outside. Maya clung to him so tightly that even setting her down for 2 minutes brought tears. The damage Danielle had left behind wasn't just temporary. It was deep. Marcus realized then that his role wasn't just to provide. It was to heal. Later that day, his sister Tasha stopped by. She was a sharp-tongued woman with a heart of gold, the kind who never sugarcoated anything. She walked in, took one look at Marcus's tired face, and shook her head. "Lord have mercy. You look like you've been through war." Marcus exhaled, running a hand over his face. "In a way I have." Tasha crouched down to the girls, hugging them each tightly. "My babies. Auntie's here. Y'all okay?" They nodded, though their eyes told another story. Once they were settled with coloring books at the kitchen table, Tasha pulled Marcus aside. "All right. Tell me everything." Marcus recounted the night. The rain, Danielle's betrayal, the confrontation. Tasha listened, her expression hardening with every detail. "That woman is trash," she snapped when he finished. "I told you she was no good. Didn't I tell you? A woman who rolls her eyes when kids talk ain't a woman ready to be a mother." Marcus sighed. "I wanted to believe she could change. That she loved us. She loved what you provided," Tasha shot back. "Big difference." Marcus knew she was right. Still, a wave of guilt crashed over him. "But maybe this is on me. I brought her into their lives. I thought I was doing the right thing, giving them someone who could help raise them, someone they could look up to. Instead You stop that right now," Tasha interrupted firmly. "Don't you dare blame yourself for her wickedness. You're a good father, Marcus. Those girls are lucky to have you. But you're gonna have to stand strong now. Ain't no half-stepping when it comes to healing them from this." Her words sank deep. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Marcus rearranged his entire life. He spoke with his boss and shifted to part-time, even though it meant tighter finances. He organized his mornings around school drop-offs and his afternoons around cooking, homework, and bedtime routines. It wasn't easy. There were nights when exhaustion nearly knocked him out on the couch. There were days when the girls fought endlessly, their emotions spilling over in ways they didn't yet know how to handle. Amira, once confident and chatty, grew quieter. Kayla developed a fear of thunder, bursting into tears whenever clouds gathered. Maya became clingier than ever, crying whenever Marcus left the room. He tried therapy for them, but money was tight and the waiting list was long. So he did what fathers have done for generations. He improvised. He read bedtime stories about brave little girls who conquered storms. He taught them breathing exercises when fear struck. He held them when they cried, sometimes crying himself once they fell asleep. Through it all, his love never wavered. One evening a storm rolled in. The thunder cracked and Kayla screamed, diving under the table. Amira grabbed Maya and held her close, both of them trembling. Marcus's heart broke at the sight. He knelt beside Kayla, pulling her gently out. Hey, it's okay, baby girl. Thunder's just the clouds playing drums." Kayla's eyes were wide. "But what if she comes back? What if she throws us out again?" The question pierced him deeper than any blade could. He pulled all three into his lap, wrapping them in his arms. "Listen to me. Nobody is ever putting you outside again. Not while I'm alive. This is your home. And as long as Daddy breathes, you are safe here. You hear me?" They nodded, their tears soaking his shirt. For the first time since that dreadful night, Marcus saw a flicker of relief in their eyes. Maybe, just maybe, they believed him. But outside his home, whispers grew louder. Neighbors gossiped about Danielle leaving, some blaming Marcus for picking the wrong woman. At church, older women muttered that children needed a mother, that Marcus couldn't do it alone. The judgment weighed on him. Late at night, when the house was quiet, doubts crept in. Could he really raise 3 daughters alone? Would they resent him one day for not giving them a mother figure? One night, overwhelmed, he sat on the porch with his head in his hands. The stars above blurred through his tears. But then he felt it. 3 small hands resting on his arms. Amira, Kayla, and Maya had followed him outside. They didn't say a word. They just sat with him, their little heads leaning against his shoulders. And in that moment, Marcus realized something profound. He didn't need to be perfect. He just needed to be present. Love wasn't about filling every role flawlessly. Love was about showing up again and again, even when it hurt, even when it was hard. That night, surrounded by his daughters, Marcus silently vowed to keep showing up, for as long as they needed him. And in return, their resilience began to grow. Slowly but surely. The weeks turned into months, and though the wounds Danielle had left were deep, Marcus and his daughters were beginning to stitch themselves back together. Life had fallen into a new rhythm. Every morning, Marcus braided Amira's hair, though his parting lines were crooked, and she sometimes giggled at his clumsy fingers. He packed Kayla's lunches with little handwritten notes that said things like, "You are brave and Daddy loves you." And for Maya, he sang silly bedtime songs, his deep voice cracking in ways that made her laugh until she fell asleep. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was theirs. The bond between father and daughters grew stronger with each passing day. And Marcus, though often weary, found strength in their laughter, their hugs, and even in their tears. But healing is never a straight road. And sometimes, just when you think you're safe, the past comes pounding on your door. It was a Saturday evening when it happened. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, the smell of barbecue drifting through the neighborhood. Marcus was out in the yard with his girls, teaching Amira how to ride her bike without training wheels, when the sound of tires screeched at the curb. He turned and froze. Danielle. She stepped out of a shiny black car, her hair done up, her clothes expensive, her nails freshly painted. She looked like she had been living well, while the very family she'd abandoned had been piecing themselves together through pain. The girls saw her before Marcus could block their view. Kayla gasped, stumbling backward. Maya whimpered and grabbed Marcus's leg. Amira stood frozen, her knuckles white on the handlebars of her bike. Marcus's heart pounded. His instinct was to shield them, to pick them up and carry them inside, away from the source of their nightmares. Danielle smirked as she walked up the driveway, heels clicking against the concrete. "Well," she said casually, "don't I deserve a hello?" Marcus's jaw clenched. "You don't deserve anything. Why are you here?" The girls huddled behind him, their little faces peeking out, their eyes wide with fear. Danielle rolled her eyes. "Relax, Marcus. I'm not here to fight. I realized I made a mistake. Maybe I left too soon. Maybe I wasn't ready back then. But I've changed. And I want to be a part of their lives again." Her words cut like glass. Amira whispered, "Daddy, don't let her take us." Marcus crouched, looking his daughters straight in the eye. "Nobody is taking you anywhere. Do you hear me? Nobody." Then he stood tall, his voice steady. "Danielle, you threw them out in the rain. Do you remember that? Do you remember their screams? You don't just get to walk back in here like nothing happened." Danielle's expression soured. "They're my stepdaughters. I have rights." Marcus's fists clenched at his sides. "You lost every right the night you abandoned them." For a moment, it looked like she might argue. But then her eyes darted to the neighbors who had stopped to watch, their faces full of judgment. Danielle's pride wouldn't let her look small. She tossed her hair, muttered, "This isn't over," and marched back to her car. The sound of the engine faded, but the fear she left behind lingered. That night, Amira had nightmares. She woke screaming, convinced Danielle had come to take her. Kayla wet the bed, something she hadn't done in years. Maya wouldn't let go of Marcus, crying until exhaustion pulled her under. Marcus sat on the edge of his bed, his heart heavy, seeing Danielle had torn open wounds that were just starting to heal. The next morning he made a decision. He wasn't going to let Danielle's shadow haunt them any longer. He reached out to a family lawyer explaining everything. The lawyer listened, then said, "You have a strong case. If you want, we can file for full custody. cutting off any chance of her interfering again. Marcus's stomach tightened. Custody battles cost money he didn't have. But when he looked at his daughters, their fragile peace hanging by a thread, he knew he couldn't put a price on their safety. He nodded. Do it. Weeks later, Marcus found himself in court. Danielle sat across from him, looking polished and smug. Her lawyer painted her as a misunderstood woman who made a mistake but deserved a second chance. Marcus, wearing his only suit, spoke from the heart. He described the night she abandoned his girls, their tears, their fear. He showed pictures of their progress since then. Amira's school awards, Kayla's art projects, Maya's growing confidence. At one point, the judge asked if anyone wanted to speak. To Marcus's surprise, Amira raised her hand. She walked to the stand, her small frame trembling but her voice steady. Your Honor, please don't make us go back with her. She put us outside in the rain. We cried and begged, and she didn't care. My daddy takes care of us. He makes pancakes, he helps with homework, he loves us. He's all we need. The courtroom fell silent. Even Danielle shifted uncomfortably. Tears filled Marcus's eyes as he hugged Amira when she stepped down. By the end of the day, the judge ruled in his favor. Full custody granted to Marcus. Danielle's rights were terminated. It was over. The relief was overwhelming. Marcus took his daughters to the park that evening. They played on the swings, their laughter filling the air. For the first time in months, Marcus felt truly free. Daddy, Kayla asked as she swung higher. She's not coming back, right? Marcus smiled softly. No, baby. She's not coming back. Just us now. Always. Maya clapped her hands. Just Daddy and us. The dust of the courtroom battle settled, and Marcus found himself standing at the threshold of something new. For so long, his life had been defined by survival, working long hours, fighting battles in silence, protecting his daughters from the shadows of betrayal. But now, with full custody secured and Danielle gone for good, there was space for something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Still, healing didn't come overnight. Trauma leaves fingerprints on the soul, invisible but ever-present. Marcus knew his daughters would need more than just safety. They needed joy, security, and a sense of belonging. And he was determined to give them exactly that. The little house that had once echoed with tension and tears began to breathe again. Marcus painted the living room a soft yellow at the girls' request. Like sunshine, Amira had said. He let Kayla pick out new curtains, a cheery floral pattern that brightened every morning. Maya got her own bed, decorated with fairy lights and stuffed animals. It wasn't about material things. It was about reclaiming their space, turning it from a place of abandonment into a sanctuary of love. One evening, as Marcus hung up the last frame on the wall, a family photo of him with the girls at the park, Amira wrapped her arms around his waist. It feels different now, Daddy, she whispered. He kissed the top of her head. That's because this house isn't just walls anymore. It's our home. The months flew by, and soon Christmas arrived again, the 1-year mark since that fateful night Danielle had left them crying in the rain. But this Christmas was nothing like the last. Marcus went all out. He strung twinkling lights around the porch, set up a big tree covered in ornaments, and even managed to save enough to buy presents that actually made the girls squeal with joy. On Christmas morning, the living room was filled with laughter as wrapping paper flew everywhere. Maya danced around in her new sparkly dress. Kayla proudly showed off her art kit, and Amira hugged the set of books she had been dreaming about. Marcus sat back, watching them with tears in his eyes. Last Christmas, he had held them shivering in the cold, promising them it would get better. And here they were, living proof that promises, when spoken with love, can be kept. Later that evening, as they sipped hot cocoa by the fire, Kayla leaned against him and whispered, "Daddy, this is the best Christmas ever." Marcus smiled, his voice thick. And it's only the beginning. Through the trials, Marcus had changed too. He was no longer just a father surviving day to day. He had become a protector, a nurturer, and in many ways both mom and dad rolled into one. But it wasn't only responsibility that grew inside him, it was pride. He realized his daughters weren't just his burden to carry. They were his greatest blessing. He started journaling at night, writing down the little moments. Amira's determined spirit, Kayla's gentle kindness, Maya's fearless laughter. He wanted to remember it all. He wanted them to one day look back and see how their love had carried him just as much as he carried them. For years, Marcus had tried to handle everything alone. But after Danielle's betrayal, something changed. His neighbors, church members, and even co-workers rallied around him. They brought meals when money was tight, offered to babysit when he worked late, and encouraged his daughters at school events. One Saturday, a group of neighbors helped him fix up the backyard, turning it into a safe play space for the girls. As Marcus watched Amira race Kayla across the freshly cut lawn while Maya played on the swing set, he felt tears sting his eyes. For the first time he realized he wasn't alone. They weren't alone. Life had been stable for a while when something unexpected happened. Marcus's boss called him into the office one afternoon. "Marcus," he said, sliding a folder across the desk, "I've been watching you. Your work ethic, your perseverance. It's inspiring. I want to offer you a promotion. It means more hours but also more pay, and benefits for your girls." Marcus's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" The man smiled. "Dead serious. You've earned this." That night, when Marcus told his daughters, Amira squealed and said, "See, Daddy? God sees us. He's giving us good things now." Marcus hugged her tightly. For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like a storm. Felt like sunrise. Months later, Danielle reached out one last time. Letter. Marcus debated whether to read it, but eventually he did. In shaky handwriting she apologized, though her words felt hollow. She asked if the girls would ever forgive her. Marcus didn't respond. Instead, he folded the letter and tucked it into his journal. One day, when his daughters were older, he would let them decide how to feel. For now, his focus wasn't on the past, it was on the future. On the anniversary of the night everything fell apart, Marcus did something symbolic. He took his daughters out in the rain. They wore boots and raincoats, jumping in puddles and laughing as water splashed around them. At first, Amira was hesitant, the memory of that night lingering. But when Marcus held her hand and said, "This rain doesn't mean pain anymore, it means new beginnings," she smiled through tears. They laughed until their cheeks hurt, the rain washing away what was left of the sorrow. It was a promise sealed not in words, but in action. The storm that once broke them would now remind them of their strength. Years later, when people spoke of Marcus, they didn't just call him a single father. They called him a hero. His daughters thrived. Amira became a teacher, Kayla pursued art, Maya danced her way into college. And through it all, they never forgot the man who held them in the rain, who fought in the courtroom, who sacrificed everything so they could grow in love. Because the truth was simple. Danielle may have abandoned them, but Marcus never did. And sometimes the greatest love stories aren't romantic. They're the ones between a parent and their children. Thank you for watching this emotional and inspiring soul-stirring story. Subscribe for more interesting and emotional stories. Don't forget to comment and like this story. Thank you.